I never imagined that the girl cleaning the office would reveal a heartbreaking 300M secret. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The light in the office flickered, casting eerie shadows. I was buried under paperwork, drowning in deadlines. The walls felt closer, squeezing the anxiety from my chest. That's when I saw her. A quiet girl, with dark curls and tired eyes, pushing the vacuum cleaner like it was a boulder. Her name was Mia. I barely knew her, but there was something about the way she moved, like she was carrying the weight of the world. I could hear her humming softly, a sweet melody that broke through my fog of stress. Just then, a loud crash rang through the air. My heart raced. I looked towards her, her hands trembling and a gasp escaping her lips as she dropped a stack of papers. They fluttered to the ground like lost hopes that I rushed over, but it wasn't the papers that caught my attention. It was a small, tattered notebook, half hidden beneath the desk. Its leather cover was cracked, and I could see fleeting glimpses of handwritten notes spilling secrets. "Mia, what's this?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She froze, her eyes wide. I shouldn't have. Panic washed over her face. Why was she so scared? I reached for the notebook, but she snatched it away, clutching it to her chest like a lifeline. I could feel my heart pounding. What could be in there that had her so frightened? "Mia, it's okay. You can trust me," I pleaded, my breath quickening. But I could see she was slipping away. The air thickened with tension. I sensed something monumental was buried within her thoughts, something dark that connected to that notebook. The kind of thing that turned lives upside down. She glanced around, as if the walls themselves could hear us. "It's not just a notebook, it holds a secret. One worth 300 million. My stomach twisted. A secret? I felt my pulse quicken as I leaned in closer, desperate for answers. In that instant, the office door swung open, and our boss entered with a loud thud. He glanced at us, confusion etched on his face. Mia darted past him, heart racing, leaving me holding that fragile moment, pregnant with mystery. What did she mean? What secret lay hidden in that notebook? Just like that, I was thrust into a whirlwind of uncertainty. My hands trembled, the air thick with unspoken words and unanswerable questions. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The weeks that followed were a storm of questions and uncertainty. I found myself staring out the window for hours, lost in thought, replaying the moment Mia had said those words. A secret worth 300 million. It felt like a weight pressing down on my mind, suffocating, yet I couldn't shake the glimmer of intrigue it sparked within me. Mia was becoming a ghost in my everyday life, appearing only briefly to continue her work. Each day she would quietly hum to herself, her lips barely moving as she swept the floors or cleaned the desks. I tried to engage her, but she always seemed to retreat behind an invisible wall. The once vibrant melody that had captured my attention turned melancholic as it faded into the background of my thoughts. One evening, I decided to stay late, hoping to catch her alone. The fluorescent lights buzzed softly, casting a warm glow on the empty office. I leaned back in my chair, steeling myself for the conversation I longed to have. When the sound of her vacuuming drifted closer, my heart raced in anticipation. "Mia?" I called out, my voice breaking the rhythm of her machine. She paused, the vacuum falling silent. "Yeah," she replied, a hint of hesitation coloring her tone. "Can I talk to you for a minute?" I shifted in my seat, feeling vulnerable. The night felt heavier with unspoken fears. She approached slowly, her eyes darting around the room like a cornered animal. "Is everything okay?" No. Everything is not okay, I admitted gently, desperate for her to see my sincerity. You don't have to be afraid of me. I just want to understand about the notebook and the secret. Her shoulders tensed. I can't. You don't know who you're dealing with. Then help me understand, I pressed, my voice softer now. I promise I won't betray your trust. What's in there? She hesitated, her face shifting from fear to a deep sorrow that creased her brow. It's not just money, you know. It's people's lives. My father. If they find out I have it, they'll come for me. Mia, who? There was a beat of silence, a stillness that stretched between us like a chasm. Her gaze dropped to the floor, as if the weight of her gaze could anchor her in this moment. They're dangerous. They'll do anything to protect their interests. Suddenly, the tension in the room shifted. A loud bang rattled through the office, sending shivers down my spine. My heart pounded as I glanced toward the door. It swung open with force, and a figure stepped in, silhouetted by the dim hallway light. Get away from her. A low voice commanded, fierce and potent. Before I could process what was happening, Mia stepped back, panic in her eyes. Please, no. The stranger moved closer, just as the realization crashed through me like a wave. He wore a dark coat, and I recognized him, the man from the coffee shop across the street, the one who had been watching Mia. My heart raced with alarm as I gathered my thoughts, but it felt like the room was spinning. What do you want? I blurted out, my voice barely above a whisper. He smirked, a menacing expression that sent chills crawling up my back. Just a little chat. It's time we discussed that notebook. Mia's breath quickened, her hands trembling. No, I won't let you hurt anyone. Too late for that. His voice was steady and cold, sending a jolt of dread through my veins. I needed to act, to protect her, but I felt paralyzed in fear. The secret, the danger, it felt like a noose tightening around us. What had she gotten me into? What did I just stumble into? Before I could draw a breath to respond, the lights flickered, casting darkness across the room. The chill that took over smothered my hope, and as panic clawed at my heart, I could only wonder what would happen next. The darkness enveloped us, a thick veil that clawed at my senses. I stood there, anchored to the floor by a mix of fear and disbelief, while the air crackled with tension. The flickering lights only heightened the sense of foreboding. In that darkened moment, I could barely make out Mia's terrified features as she edged closer to me, her body trembling like a leaf in a storm. Please, you don't have to do this, I said, summoning every ounce of courage. It felt as though I were standing at the precipice of a chasm, trying to convince a wild animal to turn back. The man chuckled, the sound dripping with mockery. See how easy it is to cower in the dark. It's a familiar game for someone like you who wants to play hero. He advanced, his shadow stretching across the gleaming office floor, swallowed by the night outside. Just then, a surge of instinct kicked in. Get behind me, Mia, I urged, positioning myself protectively in front of her. She hesitated but obeyed, her presence a soft breath against my back, a reminder of why I needed to stand my ground. The man stopped, a flicker of surprise flashing across his face. Cute. But it won't protect you. Then, out of nowhere, an unexpected noise ripped through the silencia, phone ringing, sharp and jarring. My heart raced, and I could see the man's annoyance flare as he turned momentarily. It was Mia's phone, tucked away in her coat pocket, and the sound seemed to electrify the air between us. Answer it, he ordered, vividly aware of the crowd it could draw if someone heard our standoff. Now that I felt Mia stiffen, her breath hitching in her throat. My mind raced. Why was she so afraid to answer? Time seemed to hang in limbo as she pulled it out, her fingers trembling. She shot me a glance that spoke volumes, a silent plea that prompted me to step up in this moment. That it could be someone who will help, I whispered urgently, risking eye contact for the first time. The moment lingered, drawing out the tension like a tight string ready to snap at any moment. With a deep, wavering breath, she swiped to answer, her voice barely a whisper. Hello. There was a beat of silence before a stern voice spilled through the speaker. "Mia, it's James. Are you safe? We need to move quickly." Her eyes widened, her fight-or-flight instinct kicking in. I am okay," she stuttered as fear seeped back into her posture. "But I can't now is not the time for indecision." James snapped, the urgency stark in his tone. "In close. Just hold on for me, please." The man's demeanor shifted slightly as he emerged from the shadows, his anger a palpable energy. "Hang up the phone, Mia," he hissed, his patience wearing thin. "No." I shot back, adrenaline coursing through my veins. "We need to hear what he has to say." She hesitated, her eyes darting between us, caught in a tug-of-war between fear and a flicker of hope. "I can't just abandon everything." "Then don't," I urged, my voice becoming steadier, desperate to keep her grounded while also distracting the man. "You don't have to do this alone." The moment hung heavy with tension, the man grinding his teeth as he poisoned the air with his contempt. "You'll regret this," he growled, inching closer. Suddenly, the call ended, and Mia dropped the phone, clenching her fists. "What do you want?" She shot at him, her courage surprising me. "All I want is what's rightfully mine." He stretched out a hand, gesturing toward her pocket. "The notebook." "Hand it over." Mia, understanding washed over me in a wave, crashing against my rocky resolve. The notebook wasn't just a piece of paper, it was power, and now Mia was trapped in a web spun with greed and darkness. Just then, the unmistakable sound of footsteps echoed from the hallway. My heart surged with hope, praying it was James, or anyone who could help. "Time's up," the man snarled, realization shimmering in his eyes. "You better decide fast." That I glanced back toward the door, then to Mia. Her face was threaded with uncertainty and fear, but something ignited within me a fierce determination to protect the light in her that refused to be extinguished. "Whatever happens, we face it together," I whispered, my heart pounding in my chest. But in the next, brief moment, the door swung open, blinding lights flooded the office, and the figure that stepped in sent shockwaves of betrayal crashing through me. It was Mia's father. The man's smirk deepened. Well. I didn't expect him to show up so soon." The air thickened with tension as Mia's father locked eyes with her, the shock of the moment reminiscing like a shattered glass. "What the hell is going on, Mia?" he demanded, his voice threaded with a mixture of protective rage and confusion. "Mia." The man's voice dripped with mockery, clearly relishing the chaos. "Looks like your little secret is unraveling faster than we thought." That I felt the weight of betrayal wash over me, heavy and cold. The man had promised secrets and power, but I never imagined it could intertwine so painfully with the very fabric of Mia's life. Moments felt like minutes, each second stretching into eternity. "Mia, do you know this man?" her father pressed, his eyes darting between the intruder and my trembling girlfriend. Her throat constricted as she struggled to find the right words, and I could feel her fear clawing at the edges of her resolve. "He wants my notebook," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. That I could almost see the gears turning in her father's mind, his protective instincts thrust into overdrive. "You need to get away from him, Mia. Now," he said sharply, moving toward her. No. I interjected, desperation rushing through my veins. "Do not let him take you." My words hung heavy in the air, a futile plea as I fought against the gravity of dread pulling us into a nightmarish spiral. The intruder laughed, a sound resonating with malevolence. "Such a noble boyfriend you have, Mia. But you know what they say, heroes always fall fast." He stepped slightly closer to Mia's father, the taunt wrapped in shadow. "And the truth is, you've been living in the dark for far too long." Mia's father's expression darkened, and for a split second, I saw a flicker of something beneath his stoic facade. Fear? Regret? Was he somehow complicit in this world of secrets and shadows? "Mia, listen to me," he yelled, voice shaking with urgency. "You cannot trust him. There's so much you don't know." "What is it that I don't know?" she responded, a brave edge slicing through the fear. "Tell me the truth, Dad." I held my breath, praying for the revelation we desperately needed to turn the tide. But the man intervened, blocking her father's view and creating a cocoon of uncertainty. That's enough. Tonight's not the night for family reunions, get your hands off her. I shouted, but the words hung powerless in the oppressive atmosphere. With every thrust of tension, MIA's father weighed his words. There are things in that notebook that could expose everything, the intruder finished, venom lacing his words. Or could silence it all. Choose wisely, Mia. You have the power to keep this secret buried, or to let it shine bright and bring everyone down. A flicker of something other than fear ignited in MIA's eyes, a glimmer of understanding. What do you mean? She asked, her voice steadier now. Is there something in the notebook that would harm the family? Your father knows just how precious the knowledge you carry is, the man taunted, glancing at MIA's father, who now looked like a statue, caught between rocks and hard places. The silence that followed was deafening. Mia and her father stood frozen in a tableau of unspoken truths while the man watched with cold indifference. Then, without breaking the eye contact, I stepped forward, my heart racing to forge a connection, however fragile. Mia, remember that courage you showed when you answered the phone? It's still there. Use it. I turned to her father, desperation mixing with hope. Together, we can figure this out. But the tension snapped as MIA's father crumbled under the weight of his own secrets. Two didn't want you involved, Mia. I wanted to keep you safe. Rage and pain twisted his features as he spoke, exposing the layers of pain we had all been unaware of, hidden carefully beneath layers of family affection. Mia stared at her father, bewildered. Safe from what? And at that moment, it was as if the world around us blurred into insignificance. The man's smirk faded, his calculations shifted. Fools, all of you, he spat. If you don't hand it over now, everyone here will regret it. MIA's breath quickened as clarity cut through her fog. You're using me, yes, he replied, the word dripping with malicious satisfaction. And when I get what I want, you'll all be left in the dark, bleeding from the inside out. Before I could process what that meant, MIA's father lunged forward, attempting to shove the man away from his daughter. Everyone moved at once. A cacophony of chaos erupted, our bodies colliding in a tangle of limbs. In that moment, everything collapsed into screams, shouts, and the piercing clang of emergency sirens approaching from outside. Just as the man's grip tightened around Mia, her fingers found purchase on her notebook, grasping it tightly as if it were her lifeline. Let go. She cried, and something fierce flashed in her eyes, a defiance I had yearned to see. That heartbeat, hope surged and collapsed, giving way to a new pooling dread as the door burst open again. This time, a figure cloaked in authority flooded the room. It was James, flanked unexpectedly by a pair of officers. Just as the chaos spiraled further out of control. Freeze. Everybody on the ground. James shouted, his voice weaving through the frantic shouts, locking the scene in a taut grip. MIA's father stumbled back, eyes wide with recognition as he realized the full weight of what was unraveling. Each revelation felt like pulling at a thread that threatened to unravel the whole tapestry of their lives. Mia. James called out, but the world fell silent in that instant, a culmination of truths ready to spill forth. And just like that, secrets lingered in the air, unspoken, chaotic, dynamic. The heart of the storm was only just beginning to brew, and all I could do was stand in trembling silence, my mind racing toward the cliff we had unwittingly stumbled upon. The room felt slick with tension, every heartbeat echoing as if a clock counting down toward an inevitable chaos. James stood firm, an emblem of authority amid the fray, yet even he couldn't pierce through the fog of fear that enveloped us all. Mia. He shouted again, his eyes darting toward the intruder, who wore a smirk that seemed almost otherworldly. Get away from him. The urgency of his voice bounced between us, yet I could see Mia wrestling with the weight of her choices, her grip on the notebook tightening in response to the looming threat. He knows things about our family, James, about us. She cried, a hint of desperation making her words a fragile bridge toward some understanding, things that could bring it all crashing down. The intruder chimed in, relishing the chaos unfolding around him. I wanted to scream, to grab Mia's hand and pull her toward safety, yet I remained frozen by the crumbling pillars of trust, loyalty, and the whispers of familial betrayal surrounding us. James moved forward, trying to form a barrier between Mia and the encroaching danger, a fleeting act of courage against the darkness that threatened to consume us. Step away from her. James barked, pushing past Mia's father, who was a tableau of regret split between protecting his daughter and confronting his shattered past. Do you even know what you've walked into? The man sneered, his confidence more unnerving than anything I had ever faced. You're in way over your heads, officers. This is just a game to me. Enough. James' voice sliced through the air, his authority ringing clear. I won't warn you again. But the intruder only chuckled, and in that laughter rang a chilling certainty. You think you can save her? You think you can shield her from the truth? She's deep in this now, and there's no escaping the consequences. Mia's eyes flicked toward her father, searching for a lifeline, but he merely hung his head in defeat, awash with regret. Mia, I am tired of your lies. She spat, her voice rising like the tide. You've protected me for so long, but at what cost? What am I really protecting myself from? As the walls closed in, desperation welled inside me, raw and heavy. Mia, please listen to him. I shouted, a raw urgency igniting my plea. Whatever is in that notebook, if it could hurt you or your family, we need to understand. We can't hide from the truth anymore. With a fierce determination, she stepped back, the notebook clutched to her chest, as if it were a heart she was protecting. You're right. I can't run away from it. But the cost of knowing may be higher than any of us can bear, she replied, voice trembling as the emotions bubbled to the surface. Around us, the air grew thick with fear, and in that tense moment, something extraordinary happened. An unexpected kindness. An officer, one I had only seen in passing, stepped forward hesitantly. Mia, we can help you. If you need to reveal what's in that notebook, we will keep you safe, she offered, softening the edges of the chaos. Mia's gaze softened, a hesitant thread of trust glimmering through the fog. Help me, James nodded, his voice steadying. We're here for you. No matter what you decide. But the intruder seized on the vulnerability with twisted eagerness. Help? You think they can help you? You'll be nothing more than a pawn in their game, just as you are in mine. Mia's resolve faltered as the confrontation escalated, the collision of secrets reaching a fever pitch. It was evident that every moment was a deception waiting to unravel. Suddenly, the weight of a heavy truth hung in the air, undeniable and raw. Her father's face bore lines of sorrow, shadows of choices he could never withdraw. I'm sorry, Mia. I never meant for you to be ensnared in this. An eerie silence filled the room, as if the world held its breath. Then, Mia stepped forward, renewed strength ignited by an undercurrent of raw determination. Then tell me everything. I don't want to hide anymore. James nodded in encouragement, stepping closer, poised between protection and peril. Whatever you're holding, Mia, don't do it alone. We'll face it together. But the intruder laughed, his reaction almost instinctual. You dare? You think you can confront the truth without facing the consequences? Let me remind you, some secrets are worth dying for. Tension swelled as the officers moved to flank Mia, the situation having morphed from chaotic to dangerous. The air crackled with threat, and then a siren wailed in the distance, growing closer, a tangible connection to the outside world. Reality crashed down upon us, a reminder of the breaking point we all danced upon. In that electrified moment of vulnerability, I reached for Mia, but the chaotic dance of fate collided with an unexpected turn. Just as my fingers brushed against hers, the intruder lunged forward, determined to snatch her notebook, and then everything exploded into a shattering frenzy of sound. My heart raced as uncertainty flooded the atmosphere, and just when I thought we might emerge from the collapse, the high shriek of the siren pierced through, drowning every other sound and leaving us hovering in terrifying anticipation. And then the unimaginable happened. In that instant of frenzy, a different kind of silence enveloped the room, one heavy with dread as the intruder raised his hand, and the atmosphere shifted, thickening like smoke billowing through the cracks. You think this ends here? He hissed, as something cold and pernicious unfurled within the pocket of his jacket. A secret slipped away from my grasp, and the conclusion of our worlds fell precariously toward a cliff's edge, steered by the danger that now shadowed every breath we took. We stood, teetering on the brink between illumination and darkness, desperate for clarity yet afraid of its consequences, knowing that whatever came next would change us forever. The siren's wail echoed like a haunting spectre, weaving through the walls and seeping into our very souls. The sound intensified, but it barely registered against the pounding of my heart and the sheer disbelief in the unfolding chaos. Just by instinct, I lunged toward Mia, but horror gripped me as I witnessed the glint of something metallic unsheathing from the intruder's grasp, a weapon cloaked in shadows, ready to tear through the fabric of our frayed lives. "Mia, get back!" James shouted, his voice taut with urgency, yet it felt as if every syllable slipped through the cracks of time, too slow to halt the collision course we had embarked on. The world seemed to tilt, and for a brief moment, everything transformed into a spectrum of stark white noise punctuated by racing thoughts. How had it come to these, a confrontation fueled not just by secrets, but by something darker lurking just beneath the facade? The intruder's smirk faded, replaced by a steady gaze that bristled with anticipation. "You all think you're so brave," he mused, his tone mocking our collective fear. "But bravery is just ignorance dressed in a false coat. Mia, you really have no idea, do you?" Mia stood resolute, the fire of newfound determination kindling within her. "I will face the truth, no matter what it costs." Her voice wavered, reflecting both courage and vulnerability, as she sought some glimmer of assurance amid the turmoil swirling around us, yet the intruder shook his head, a sinister laugh erupting from him like shards of glass. "Truth? You want truth? You're already buried under layers of deception. The depth of what's hidden in that notebook could unravel everything you thought you knew. You don't know what lies in your father's past, and you don't know how deep the roots run." A heavy silence settled, laden with possibility and dread. Mia's father's face contorted as if something profound had struck him, igniting flickers of distress in his usually stoic demeanor. "Mia, I stop," she cried, shaking her head as if to dispel the heaviness of his words. "Just stop. I can take it. Tell me what's in there." I deserve the truth. In the chaos, I felt a warm hand clasp my own, pulling me slightly back from the abyss of despair crawling at the corners of my mind. It was the officer, the kind-hearted one who had offered Mia her support. "We won't let him hurt you," she whispered, infusing strength into my own faltering resolve. But it was a fragile promise, hanging by a thread in the shadow of the intruder looming larger by the second, a predator reveling in the disarray. "Such noble sentiments," he taunted, his fingers curling around the glinting metal now recognized as a firearm. "But there are paths you cannot tread once you cross into these shadows. This family is already doomed." Something fierce ignited within me, transforming our palpable fear into defiance. "You're wrong," I found myself saying, my voice trembling but unwavering. "You're not the architect of our fates. You may think you hold all the cards, but there's strength in facing the truth." He raised an eyebrow, intrigued, teasingly circling around the pit of chaos he had formed. "Ah, the idealist. Let me enlighten you. Truth can be a weapon, and it seems you're all but ready to be taken down by your own principles." Suddenly, as if the heavens had graced us with a piercing truth, the blaring sirens grew closer, swirling like dark clouds over a tempestuous sea, yet hope dared to take root in the midst of despair. I caught another glimpse of compassion with the officer stepping closer to the front lines, positioning herself in a protective arc around Mia, eyeing the intruder with unwavering determination, ready to defend her with every essence of herself. But the intruder merely pivoted, his eyes narrowing with perception all too keen, and a chilling thought darted through my mind, a fleeting reality that perhaps the echo of this night wouldn't end with mere revelations but rather heralded darker undertones. "Yet to unfold, let's make a game of things," he said suddenly, his words spilling out in a deceitful honey-laced drawl. "I'll make you a deal. You can know the truth about your family, Mia. All your questions answered in one swift moment." He gestured dramatically toward the notebook, raising his weapon, and every muscle in my body tightened. "Just hand it over, and I'll lay bare your father's secrets, his mistakes, the very essence of decay that looms over you like a specter." His gaze flickered with a predatory glint, waiting, expecting the panic to unravel before him. Mia hesitated, the weight of her unspoken questions clashing with the realities of what it might cost her. I could see her breathing heavily, battling with her emotions as her father claimed the floor, clutching the edges of vulnerability. "Mia, don't. There are things," that he faltered. "Things I can't protect you from, then let me choose." She cried, and in that moment of desperation, I felt a crunching reality slam into my chest. What truths lost or buried could alter everything I believed about not just her family, but our very own? Just then, a blinding flash erupted from behind the chaos, illuminating the darkened corners of the room for the merest of moments. My breath caught, the world snapping into contrast. Through the broken glass of our confrontation, I caught sight of another figure, a woman emerging, once a mere glimmer in the background, now revealed starkly against the chaos, with a deep resemblance to Mia, a familiar anguish echoing in her eyes, a revelation that shattered everything into a hardness nearly palpable. "Mia," she breathed, urgency saturating her tone. The shockwave of realization washed over me, unraveling the spine of what I thought I understood. "The truth is always waiting," the intruder sneered, the chaos hinging on the precipice of the unknown, and within that electrified moment, the stage was set, secrets unfurling like petals begging to bloom, but we were embedded in a thicket of betrayal and vulnerability, as emotions cracked on the surface like dried paint, waiting for an unseen storm to break through. The air grew thick with tension, and nothing could prepare us for the torrential downpour of revelations that followed. Mia's eyes widened in disbelief as the woman stepped closer, framing the chaos with the light of familiarity. "Mom." The word trembled on her lips, a fragile whisper woven with hope and doubt. "Mia, I thought I'd lost you forever," her mother exclaimed, stepping into the room with a mix of desperation and love, her voice cracking like the tension in the air. The intruder remained motionless, but his lips twisted into a gloating grin, visibly relishing the confusion rippling through us. "Such a touching reunion," he mocked, gun still drawn, the barrel glinting ominously. "But is it worth more than a life? Now, who's willing to risk it? Hand over the notebook. Let's not waste time with family drama when there are deeper truths to expose." Mia shook her head, her spirit visibly wavering. "No. You don't know anything about us. This isn't just a game." Her voice quivered, resounding with the tumult of suppressed grief and tender longing, the past and future colliding in a storm. But her mother's expression was unreadable, betraying traces of pain that reached for the shadows. "Mia, please. You need to listen to me. There are things in that notebook that were never meant for you to know," she urged, stepping tentatively toward her daughter, desperate to soothe the confusion swelling in her heart. "I didn't keep the truth away from you to hurt you. I thought I was protecting you." Suddenly, I became painfully aware of how fragile hope can be, like a spider's silk tethered to a windblown branch, teetering on the edge of breaking. I watched as Mia wrestled with the heavy weight of her emotions, torn between wanting to embrace the mother she thought was lost and questioning the very foundation of her existence. "Protecting me?" She pushed back, her voice rising, crackling with disbelief. "By lying? By hiding? I don't even know who you are anymore." There it was, the raw vulnerability, bared and bleeding, the sharp edge of betrayal piercing at the core of their reunion. As the tension escalated, I felt the officer's hand slip from mine, her eyes darting between the unfolding chaos, searching for any opening to protect Mia and her mother. I sensed that the intruder was becoming increasingly agitated, the shifts in his body language betraying his fragile control. "Enough of this," he thundered, his gun pointing unwaveringly toward Mia's mother. "The truth can wait, but the price of silence is always steep." In that instance, time seemed to warp, spinning in spirals of panic as the officer took a step forward. "Get back. You don't have to do this. We can talk," she shouted, her voice cutting through the fray like a beacon in the stormy night. But the intruder merely laughed. "Talk is for the foolish. If you want to know the truth about your family, my dear Mia, then fate doesn't offer sweet alternatives." His eyes danced with madness, the revelation of Mia's mother only fanning the flames of his perilous game. The air shifted, a potent concoction of fear, shock, and the glimmer of hope pushing through overwhelming darkness. I felt time stretch infinitesimally around us. Mia. You have to choose. Now. I shouted, holding my breath as anticipation weighed heavily. As if teetering on the edge of an abyss, Mia's gaze swiveled back and forth between her mother, who approached with an anguished plea, and the sinister figure attempting to wield truth as a weapon. Finally, her voice surged forth, stronger and more resolute. No one gets to decide my fate. But before she could finish, the door slammed open with a force that startled everyone, knocking our fragile house of cards clean off the table. Another police officer charged in, followed by a surge of uniformed guardians, cascading like a wall of thunder into the maelstrom. The unexpected arrival sent palpable waves of tension coursing through the room. Mia. Get down. The officers shouted as the other officers moved in position, ready to take control. But amidst the confusion and shattering emotions, the intruder's block of triumph cracked, and with it, so did the precious balance of control. He bellowed, the chaos around him erupting in swirling confusion. You don't understand the games we're playing. This is far from over. A sudden shot rang out, the sound splitting through the air like an unnerving promise. I stumbled backward, my heart racing as the world momentarily suspended in disbelief, a cacophony of emotions crashing together like thunder. Was it the intruder or the officers? And in our desperate bid for resolution, how many more lives would be tethered to this web of truths, lies, and unspoken affections? As smoke and fear coiled around us, a final look of horror crossed Mia's mother's face, a haunting reflection of the very choices that had brought us to this tense precipice. It chimed with the familiar undercurrent of grief pulsing through my veins, intertwining the fragility of hope with the looming shadow of despair. The air hung thick, teetering on the edge of revelation and tragedy, setting the stage for an unforeseen climax. The truth was mere moments away, but at what cost would it come, and would we emerge together or fractured beyond repair? The room erupted into chaos, the air charged with a frenzied mixture of shock, desperation, and fear. Mia's expression contorted between horror and defiance, her mother reaching out, but the split-second silence before the gunshot echoed in my mind like a death knell. I barely had time to process the sudden violence before the whirlwind began again, swirling into confusion as officers shouted orders, but their commands were lost in the cacophony of a terrified heart. Mia fell to the floor, instincts kicking in as a mother's cry pierced the air, desperate and heart-wrenching. Mia. The raw panic in her voice sent tendrils of anguish snake-like through my chest, squeezing tightly until I could hardly breathe. My own legs felt heavy, a weight pressing down as I struggled to absorb the frantic image unfolding before me. The officer who had charged in first raced toward Mia, dropping to his knees beside her. I couldn't see the intruder anymore, his presence swallowed by the flurry of dark uniforms. I stood immobilized, my heart thudding painfully against my rib cage, as hope and despair danced an unforgiving waltz. Mia, it's okay. Stay with me. The officer urged, his voice rising above the turmoil while moving to assess her condition. In this fleeting moment, I caught a glimpse of her mother, grief blending with a strange sense of determination in her eyes as she pushed through the crowd of officers, desperate to reach her child. But in that moment of frantic rushing, one officer stayed back to keep the intruder in sight, wary of another outburst. Through the open door, the distant sounds of sirens wailed like a warning, reminding us that reality spun outside while we were caught in this emotional cyclone. Mia, can you hear me? Just take a deep breath. The officer's voice cracked, wavering in the bleakness of uncertainty. Time stretched on, the seconds morphing into hours as I processed the gravity of the moment. Please, please, Mia's mother whispered, her hands trembling as they clasped together, a torrent of unformed words bubbling just beneath the surface. Don't leave me again. I am here. I'm so sorry. Each syllable dripped with a raw plea, the need for connection almost palpable, surrounding us like an invisible shroud, but a shadow lingering near the doorway held my attention. The intruder had not been subdued, instead, he now appeared to be gathering himself, the venomous twist of a smirk returning to his lips. The momentary chaos had given him an opening. Did you really think it would end here? His voice rang out, husky with disdain, slicing through the frantic energy. You think this is just about you? He pointed toward Mia, but his fiery gaze locked onto her mother. No, it goes deeper than deeper than you can possibly fathom. Mia's mother narrowed her eyes, a flash of confusion and terror mixed on her face, but she held her ground. You're lying. Whatever you're trying to do, it ends now. But the intruder reveled in her defiance, almost savoring the fear he radiated. Well, see about that. Secrets have a way of unraveling, and some truths are much darker than you or your precious daughter realize. Heart pounding, I felt the urge to step forward, as if my proximity could offer protection. But the world around me was locked into a frozen tableau, a moment of film looping endlessly as the crumbling truth hung thick in the air. With a speed I scarcely grasped, the intruder reached into his coat, me breath hitched, my body instinctively bracing for a second wave of violence. My mind raced through all the moments leading to this. What had begun as a simple unraveling of family ties had quickly morphed into a tangled web of deception. Mia! I shouted, breaking through the suffocating silence, but my voice was drowned out as the officer shouted, "Get down! Now!" It wasn't until a sudden shove from behind me sent me sprawling forward that the room exploded into sound again. Cries mingled with the chaotic noise of impending danger. In the melee, I caught a glimpse of Mia, her wide eyes meeting mine, a silent plea piercing through the storm of emotions swirling around us. Before I could determine my next move, a figure blazed past. One of the officers had seized the moment, attempting to wrestle the gun away from the intruder, but a shot rang out once more. The air thickened with the acrid scent of gunfire, and time cascaded into shattering shards of horror. Mia! The cry tore from her mother's lips, woven with raw devastation as she lunged toward her daughter, instinct taking hold with a fierce grace. But in that chaotic moment, I vividly saw something flash across Mia's face, a dawning realization mixed with a flicker of hope. Then I remembered the notebook, the vestiges of secrets bound within its pages, those that Mia had needed but had yet to receive. What were these secrets that had snowballed into tragedy? What if they held the key to who she was supposed to be? The sound of gunfire dissolved into the bitter uncertainty hanging in the air, pinned between the weight of the moment and the echo of lost chances, the promises of tomorrow twisting into shadows. As I stared into the mosaic of chaos before me, I understood one thing with brutal clarity: the truth was still out there, waiting like a beast lurking in the darkness, eager to emerge and consume everything we built. Don't leave me. Mia's voice shattered the air with heart-wrenching urgency as she clung to the moment. But the trajectory of our lives had shifted irrevocably, and in this vortex of pain and defiance, a different kind of reckoning awaited. A final inconceivable realization settled like a heavy weight in my gut: the secrets we were so desperate to avoid had begun to unravel, and the foundations of our very existence were now at stake. How far could we go to protect each other when the truth itself wore the face of our deepest fears? And then, the intruder grinned wider, breaking through the veil of chaos with a statement that sent chills racing down my spine: "Mia, your past has always been entwined with mine. And the game we're playing? Oh, sweetheart, it has just begun." The sound of sirens crawled closer, their wailing cries mingling with the tumult of chaos that enveloped the room. The life and death struggle playing out before me seemed suspended in time, but within that stillness, the air vibrated with fear and uncertainty. I remained on the floor, my body frozen in shock, replaying those harrowing seconds like a broken record in my mind. Mia! Her mother cried again, desperation coloring her voice as she struggled against officers attempting to restrain her. My gaze moved from Mia to her mother, whose fear was palpable, and then back to the intruder, his twisted grin radiating an unsettling confidence. Every instinct urged me to move, to act, yet I felt anchored, unable to breach the chasms of terror that separated us. The officer who had wrestled with the intruder now knelt beside Mia, his hands deftly applying pressure to the wound, yet the scene felt impossibly distant. I could see Mia's chest rise and fall, her skin pale and glistening with a sheen of cold sweat. "Stay with me, Mia," the officer urged, his voice poised between authority and the agony of helplessness. Ignoring the cacophony around us, I leaned closer, a whisper emerging from my lips: "Mia, please, just hold on." Her eyes, normally so bright and alive, flickered toward me, a faint glimmer of recognition passing between us, but that spark ebbed quickly. drowned by the weight of despair. "Enough games," the intruder growled, his voice steely and filled with disdain. "What you don't understand is that my reach doesn't end here. This is just a taste." With a sudden surge of adrenaline, I pushed myself up and edged toward Mia, knowing I had to reach her, to show her that hope still flickered somewhere in this darkness. "Tell me what you want. Who are you?" I shouted, my voice amplified by the chaos around us, desperate for answers. That he turned his attention toward me, his smirk deepening, eyes glinting with something I could not place. "Someone who knows more than you could ever comprehend. You think Mia is the only one who holds secrets? You have no idea how deeply this runs. No. Mia's mother shouted, finally breaking free from her restraints. Her face twisted with defiance, fueled by a fierce maternal instinct. "Get away from her," but the intruder merely laughed, the sound empty and cruel, resonating with a twisted authority. "Oh, but I'm not here to hurt her, not now, at least. There is a truth you've both been shielded from, and as it unravels, you will wish things had remained hidden." With those words, clarity began to crystallize in the haze of uncertainty. It was not merely about Mia, it was woven into a deeper tapestry involving her family, their legacy, and the hidden truths that had been etched into their very existence. But how could I begin to grasp this intricate web of deceptions when I was just an outsider, fighting for their lives with every ounce of strength I had left? Then, a small voice broke through the intensity, soft yet luminous. "Mom, don't let him win." Mia managed to choke out, her effort visible in the way exhaustion laced her voice. It hit me then, her defiance was still alive, threading through the haze of trauma like a lifeline. In her moment of pain, she was still urging her mother to resist, to seek truth amidst the shattered pieces around us. The clarity of that moment struck a chord deep within me, igniting a flicker of determination. I had to protect both of them, to help them navigate this overwhelming storm. Suddenly, a plan began to form, a desperate hope coalescing from the fragments of fear. A way to reach Mia, to open the door to secrets buried deep within the shadows. "Tell me what you know," I implored the intruder, locking eyes with him. "If you really want a game, let's play it. But I won't let you hurt her." As I pushed against the emotional wall trapping me, uncertainty transformed into resolve. His laughter echoed, low and foreboding. "You truly overestimate your power in this situation." Yet even as he spoke, I sensed a tremor of doubt beneath his bravado. "Let her go," I pressed, stepping further forward, my heart pounding fiercely. "You want the truth? Give us a chance to face it. We'll find a way to unravel the pieces together, but not like this." Mia's mother glanced toward me, the fear in her eyes mingling with a spark of hope flickering to life. For a moment, we shared an understanding. We were all bound together by these secrets, this pain, and whatever darkness flowed from the intruder. And if we could join forces even when despair threatened to drown us, we might stand a chance. The sirens grew louder outside, an approaching tide of salvation that felt just out of reach. But in that moment of collective realization, the atmosphere shifted. The air thickened with the undeniable urgency to face the unfaceable, to draw the secrets from the shadows and confront whatever truths lay beneath. Just as I thought we had a mutual understanding, the intruder's expression darkened, the smirk falling away. "You think your solidarity means anything? There's a lot more at stake than you realize." Then he turned sharply, leaning closer as if sharing a secret. "Careful what you wish for, Mia. You may not be ready for the truth." Suddenly, the atmosphere crackled with an intensity that sent a chill racing down my spine, and as the officers advanced cautiously, I felt an unsettling surge of premonition. "Wait!" I cried out, my throat tightening. "What do you mean?" But before he could respond, a shout rang out from the officers outside, fierce and commanding. "Everyone, stand down. We have a code red situation." The door exploded open, an influx of officers rushing in, their presence a whirlwind of authority amidst the chaos. And in the midst of it all, one final thing struck me, an unthinkable realization as I caught sight of Mia's mother, her face white as a sheet, the weight of her secrets crashing down around her. She turned to me, eyes wide with something I could hardly recognize: fear, despair, and an urgent need for protection. That's when I understood, the intruder was only the beginning. Whatever lay hidden behind the veils of their family history loomed larger than I had dared to imagine, and as the truth began to seep through the cracks, the very fabric of our existence was unraveling around us. As the officers stormed into the room, chaos erupted once more, but amid the frantic movement, everything around me seemed to still. I felt as if I were watching from a great distance, heart pounding, a desperate wish to scream, to grab Mia and pull her to safety surging through my veins, but the scene unfolding demanded clarity, and my heart hung on the precipice of fear and hope. Put the weapon down. One officer shouted, their voice slicing through the confusion. The intruder sneered but took a cautious step back, recognizing the shift in power as the room filled with law enforcement. I could see it in his eyes. The control he wielded was slipping, yet behind that menace was the ticking clock of unresolved truths still threatening to explode. Mia. I shouted again, my voice breaking through the din of chaos just in time to catch a glimpse of her pained expression, a fierce determination sparking behind her fear. Her mother reached for her, kneeling beside her, the anguish of 1,000 moments catching in her throat. Mia, just hold on, she whispered, tears pooling in her eyes, a wellspring of unspoken memories stirring beneath the surface. As the officers began to form a barrier between Mia, her mother, and the lurking shadows of their past, I caught sight of the intruder shifting, adrenaline fueling his smirk. You all think you can lock the truth away, but it will fester, it'll consume you all, he taunted, the laughter in his voice a haunting echo of despair. No. Mia's voice rang out through the noise, fierce and unwavering. You won't hurt us anymore. It struck me how often she'd merged her fight with that of her family's, woven tightly through every moment. This stops now. You don't scare me. My heart swelled with admiration for her bravery, the flame of resilience burning bright against the darkness that surrounded us. Yet beneath that strength, I sensed an undercurrent of vulnerability. She faced not just the intruder but the weight of a family history riddled with shadows. I moved closer, my eyes locked onto hers in that moment of poignant connection. Mia, well, figure this out together, I urged, willing her to believe in the strength that lay within her and in the fragile alliance we were starting to forge. You have the power to break this cycle. Don't let him play you like a pawn any longer. Her gaze softened at my words, something flickering in her eyes, a realization that she could take charge of the terrifying truth that lay ahead. And just as we connected, the intruder opened his mouth, ramming his words like poisoned arrows into our fragile space. Face it, Mia. You're locked into a game you can't win. What will it cost you? Your mother. Your life. The twisted pleasure in his voice was almost palpable, the shadows dancing around us like the remnants of a nightmare. It was a waking call to all he sought to destroy. Enough! Shouted the lead officer, stepping forward with authority. You have 2 seconds to drop the weapon, or we will subdue you. The certainty in the officer's voice ignited a glimmer of hope, yet I could sense the intruder weighing his options between surrender and continued aggression. For the briefest of moments, I thought he might relent, but that smirk returned, a sinister promise woven firmly into that fading facade. You think you can save her? You will regret this day. Then, as if powered by pure malice, he aimed the weapon toward Mia, casting shadows of horror that flickered like flames through the encroaching darkness. Yet just before dread could sink its claws into my heart, everything snapped into place. I lunged forward instinctively, adrenaline propelling my movement as my voice erupted with urgency. No. The air thickened, charged with anticipation as I cried out, every fiber of my being surging with the need to protect her. Me love, my light. In that moment of sheer emotion, a miracle unfolded. The officers lunged forward, seizing the chance I hadn't known we needed. The intruder's gun fired, but it echoed harmlessly into the air as the officers grabbed him, grappling for control. It all happened too quickly. Chaos enveloping the room as he bucked against their grip. Mia. I shouted again, bright fear flashing in my eyes, but this time, instead of vulnerability, I saw defiance crystallizing within her. She was no longer just a girl caught in a storm of secrets. This was the moment she broke free. Truth blooms from darkness, Mia declared, her voice rising above the fray, empowered by a collective resolve that fused us into one united front, a woven strand of defiance breaking through the suffocating despair. It was in that moment, with officers restraining the intruder, that I felt the tide shifting. Mia grabbed her notebook, clutching it tightly as if it were a sacred relic of her identity, salvation intertwined with the perilous past. "You will not control me," she shouted, invoking the very foundation of her spirit. As shadows writhed beneath the weight of her unyielding courage, the world melted back into focus, and as the officers secured the intruder, he spat a final curse at Mia, but it felt like whispers against the strength of the storm she had summoned. He was just a man fought against love, but love always fortifies in the face of despair. With the tension dissipating but uncertainty still shadowing the atmosphere, my heart raced as I turned to Mia, who now stood tall next to her mother. Their expressions mirrored a combination of grief, fear, and strength enforced by the threads of their history binding them together. I stepped forward, reaching out, ready to embrace that truth and the future we'd wield together. "Mia," I said softly, words heavy with the echoes of our journey. "We can unravel this together. Your past does not dictate your future. Let your love and courage guide you." As I spoke, understanding dawned. This was not merely a battle against the intruder, it was a reclamation of their identities. She nodded, resolve solidifying in her gaze as the weight of their family legacy shifted. With her mother beside her, they prepared to confront the storm that had brewed for too long, and this was their chance to ignite their truth. One final breath escaped my lips, a soft resolve emanating from the very core of my being, a meeting place for our hearts intertwined in bravery, stepping into the uncertain light. "From this moment on, we will move forward together," I declared. "No secrets, just family and a bond that cannot be broken." As the debris of their past crumbled around them, I witnessed Mia and her mother finally embrace, their arms wrapping securely, hearts warm in their union against betrayal. Their foundation, forged from love, swept away the floors of treachery, igniting the embers of hope that the darkness had tried relentlessly to stifle, and in the end, as our world began to shift from shadows back toward the light, Mia turned to me, a smile breaking through the tears, and whispered, "Thank you." The bittersweet taste of truth resonated deep within my heart, and even in the face of potential heartbreak, I could finally exhale. The very fabric of our lives stitched into something profound, a testament to resilience, love, and the relentless pursuit of truth. And as the sun began to break through the fractured light of our storm, I felt the weight shift, and in that moment, with the world wide open before us, I realized, this was just the beginning, and whatever lay ahead, we would face it together. Whatever the journey demanded, we held the threads of hope that would unravel the darkness, stitch by stitch, secret by secret, and together, we would emerge transformed.